All right, we got a Sundance in here. A Sundance. This thing got some problems. Got some problems. Here's some D-lam. I don't know if you can see, that's bubbling out just a bit. See, got some D-lam there. Got some D-lam. I don't know if you can see all those little ripples going down the side. Get those. We're working on that. Obviously the roof. I'll show you that in a bit, but I got all the scaffold stretched apart so we can work because there's so much other damage we got to do. We want to fix that before we put all the scaffold together. See if I can negotiate my way around here. Alright, check out this back wall. What do you think of that? Voila! El Rated. You can see that siding swirling over. So like all this behind here is rotted. Should I get a no, maybe I do. Let me check and see if I got my flashlight on it. You can see all inside there is all, that's all rotted in there. So we gotta cut it up here. We're gonna cut it behind there, get all that siding off so we can fix all that. And then obviously the whole back wall here is just gone. That's trashed. Then we got some other damage over here. We got to take the door off. We got to access the inside. We're not sure of the floor in there yet. So now this is, at this point, we call this exploratory. You want to see just how much damage we got, what we got to fix. So these look pretty good. Those look well. But obviously the sides and the bottom, all the perimeter is all trashed. So that top corner of the truss is gone. That one over there, just the bottom of it, up there. Here, that will zoom in, focus. There we go, right up in there. Looks bad. So, like I said, well, we're going to pull all the insulation and see what's going on with it. And then, obviously, we got to rebuild the whole bottom end and blah, blah, blah. Alright, so that's what we got so far on our Sundance. And like I said, I can't show you the roof, get scaffold apart. And then we'll see how bad this goes. See, this is the same way. Let me get back a little, there we go. Bring the camera back. Okay, so we got all that. So we'll take the door off and see how much damage we got underneath there. Alright, so this is a 2x4. And that 2x4, someone's already been in here monkeying around. Obviously they didn't do a good job. But they don't frame these with 2x4s like that. That's so again, someone's already been in here messing with it. That didn't do a great job sealing it up. And then over here as well, into this cubby. Oh, let me get out of your way. I'm gonna set the door back there. You can tell I got another piece of this is rotted. So instead of fixing this, okay, they just put another sheet on top of it. So we're going to figure all that out too while we got it open and see how bad it is. So this is your fancy dancy aluminum frame, which typically has tiny little tack welds on them that don't usually stay. So until we get some of it off, I could probably show you, but usually they just tag one side. And on slide outs, it's not uncommon to see where you'll have a bulge down here. Yours may have that. And what it is the frame that's right here. And then there's another frame when it sits on top, just a square cut. They usually weld it on the inside, and typically what happens is that weld will start breaking because it gets going back and forth, and it works loose and it just compromises, and then you end up having a crack right here on your siding. So we did another one, a Conquest. We did a Conquest, and the Conquest, that's what we had to do, to go in there and we had to epoxy it all back together. You can't really weld this type of aluminum because the alloy on it, and everybody thinks it's great. Yeah, I got aluminum. That's awesome. They do it because it's lighter. But the problem is that the alloy in the aluminum is really cheap, and the quality of the actual aluminum. So you can't really weld it all that well because it just doesn't, you'll blow through it. You literally will blow through it. So also on our channel is another big class C we did, Super C. It's called a Fun Mover, and you can look for that one. It's like an hour and a half long. We did a boatload of work on that thing. But anyhow, we'll show you on that video, we show you how when you go to weld it, it'll just blow it out, like literally you can't do it. It's the tolerance on it for the heat. We even tried brazing it, and the braze takes like 780 degrees, I believe it is, and it melted the aluminum before the braze could even take in. So it's just cheap stuff. Again, they just do it for lightness. Anything that they brag about that they do on an RV, I promise you, they just do it for their own benefit. It has nothing to do with you at all. It's their bottom line. Can we save money doing it this way? Can we make it lighter? If we make it lighter, they sell more. They can put it on a different truck, a lighter truck that can pull it. And that's what they're geared to. You only can go so far before you just have no strength in anything. So it doesn't make sense that they make them so light that there's no strength in anything, yet then they fall apart. At least it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to you, but it makes sense to them because they already got your money. So they don't care. All right, let us get all this going. Now we're going to just take all the insulation out and everything and negotiate where the wall layout is, where our ladder goes, because obviously we got to rebuild the whole thing. All right, so now we got this back together, but there's a lot more. I'm going to show you. All the slide out floors are rotted. This forward one up here on the bedroom, that's bad. We had to pull the front cap off. But this is obviously our roof. You can see we got OSB up underneath there, but it's your typical RV roof. So they just want you to put more on, more on. Look at how much they slobbered on there. Gee whiz. How many layers you got there? Man, what a hot mess this is. It doesn't stick. Is there water under there? Feels wet. Okay. Yeah, it's wet. Yep, it's still water in there. It doesn't work. You can keep putting more on. That's all it's going to do. And it starts breaching. So once you get a little bit in there, water gets in there, and then a little bit more water, a little bit more water. Eventually, it just starts working all loose, and you get these chronic leaks. So we'll see. Oh, that's soft. That is soft right there. Or it could be my externally strong fingers. You know, I've been doing finger ups. Good exercise if you get bored. Ambidextrous here now, working left-handed with the knife. Look at there. Can't you smell that smell? Look at there. Pugnant is the word of the day. Pugnant. Yeah, that's all right in there. Okay, well, I mean, we're going to replace the roof deck anyways, but I like to get a good idea of what's wrong with everything and kind of assess the damages. So if you have one of these antennas, which we're not going to be putting this back on, I don't know what he's putting on, but water will trickle down this wire and it'll get in that boot if it's not sealed. So you want to make sure it's sealed. Even that little bit I'm pulling on it, you can see that little breach. Get that sealed. And normally you can just pull that boot up. It looks like someone tried to seal it at the bottom, but the whole problem is it's actually coming down the wire and it's going down through here. So that doesn't feel like there's anything right in that area. But you pull the boot up, you want to load it, and then see if it oozes out on the top. That's how you would fix that problem. But they're just problematic. That's why I don't like, I can't put them on because the shaft goes down all the way through the ceiling. When I try to put it up on a curve like it should be, then that shaft is now up and above the ceiling. You can't get that little crank back on there. We just put a new antenna on there. These are just economy ones anyways. So sometimes if the customer wants them, I give them right back to them. You know, I've got a whole bunch. I just throw them away, recycle them. That's all. So you can see over here, somebody's obviously tried to patch all this. We got D-lam down in here, especially down that side over there. So I'm going to have to pull this cap off because I have to get at this anyways. And I also, as I'm looking at all this, I want to make sure that all the insulation that's inside the cap, that it's not wet. And if you don't open these up and dry them out, then they will never dry out. So we're going to pull that, and then we can have access to that. But now obviously we got to pull these awnings off so we can get everything done. And then I don't know if you can see the little ripples right there. That's the D-lam. which has been coming from over here from the skylight, probably got up underneath and has worked its way down the wall. So but this is the way the manufacturer wants to put it on, and they say, yeah, that's the right way to do it. It's not. So it's the foolish way, the cheap way to do it. Even on the air conditioner, I think they do have a foam gasket right there, a little piece up underneath there. There's a little piece of foam up on the base, but up on underneath there is a foam gasket, and then all the debris, all the pollen, all the dirt, all the dust, and everything gets all collected up around there, dries that gasket out. But then when the gasket dries out, it's going to start doing these chronic leaks, real small leaks at first, and then eventually you'll start seeing your air conditioner just sag right in there. We've done quite a few of those where it just start to rotten out the trusses, rots the roof deck out, then it'll go to the trusses, then it'll, you know, if it gets worse, you know, get down into your insulation and everything. So, but that's about us and our crummy RV roof. So there's a lot of work we got to do to this thing. We're probably going to tear apart body-wise. So I got to slide out over there, floor's rotted. I got to slide out here, floor's rotted. Slide out up there, floor's rotted. And then the frame on that one I know is blown down the bottom. I know that. And then I'm not sure on this one. And then over here, on the back wall, where I was showing you, is way at the bottom, there's a joist that runs along the side for the floor. And this section of it right here at least is rotted, all I can see, but more than likely we're going to pull it all out. I'm going to tear that whole wall out. I'm just going to simply rebuild it. Some of them I will try to rebuild while it's in place. But there's so much damage in there, and I don't like the wall panel. I mean, there's extensive damage to this one. So he's probably just going to have to get some paint or something and do the inside, finish it, wallpaper, whatever. You can't match all this stuff anyways. Even if they change them so frequently, it's hard to actually match. Even if you did get the ones that look pretty close, you're going to tell that it's not going to quite match. It'll have a just a little bit different hue, a little cleaner look to it because it's new compared to what's in it now, right? So, and it's just kind of dated. It would probably look good if they painted the whole thing, in my opinion. I've had a couple of customers do that, and they do a real good job on it. But anyhow, and then this one here, this is a set of bunk beds that slide out, and that floor is rotted. So we've got quite a bit. And then way up in the front where the cap goes around, near the bottom, is rotted. So, like I said, we got quite a bit to do. All right, over here at our Sundance, get around this scaffold. Okay, so all this is all rotted up underneath here. That's a frame right there, but that's all rotted, okay? So what happened, more than likely, is the water come down, there's this piece of trim like this, runs along the bottom, water got in there and got behind all this. So the other concern I have is, you may be able to see it right there, it's got kind of a bow, and this is kind of bowing out. I'm pretty sure that the bottom support here, I think that's collapsed. So we're gonna, obviously we gotta take all this off too, but we're just investigating now. So if you have a coach like this, I stress caulk these coaches. So the water come down through here, but if you had this caulk really well, then it probably would not have failed. And it's looking like I may even have to do some work on the face here too, because that looks loose. So I'll investigate that and see what's up with it. And I'm looking at a little bubble right here. So I don't know how far up it goes. It goes up a little bit. So I didn't want to have to skin the whole thing, but I just may have to. I don't know. And like I said, this blew out right here. So that's what's telling me this frame right here collapsed. You can see the aluminum is right there with a piece of wood in it. That looks like it's collapsed out. They don't do a good job at securing these. They don't do a good job at securing these together, meaning like weld them or anything like that. So a lot of things are just stapled in what I call snot welds. They're just so small that they all the energy and everything constantly just wears out those little snot welds, and then they pop. So like I said, we'll take all this, break it free. I'm pretty sure this whole section of siding is coming off all the way over to there. I may even take the whole entire piece off. or try to prevent it, but I may have to, I don't know. This is the back wall I'm trying to frame out. So, and these are pocket holes. We're going to screw them in. You can see we got it all glued. I got glue in every one of them. And then what I do is I kind of staple that just to hold it so I can get it lined up well. That's what I do. When you put these screws in, these aren't necessarily a DIY video. When you put the screw in, it's going to sit in there. And these are pocket screws, and they're designed with that flat bottom like that because that's the way the hole gets drilled with the special pocket hole jig drill bit. This one's a Craig. There's a whole bunch of different ones out there. You see the drill bit, when it drills it, it's flat. So that's what gives it the pull power to pull the piece in, whether it's a piece of furniture or in this case framing. They don't do this. All they do is just staple it with a couple staples. But when you put these in, you can get this right here left-handed. I'm holding that, but you want to stay with it. You got to have the right tip. See, I'm not left-handed. Okay, turn this. See if I get that screw there. Where'd you go? There it is. Listen, once it comes in, it's going to make a kind of a click noise. If I hear that, like that, but that's it. Don't keep screwing it, because you'll strip all that out. So, but you do need the longer shank, because you won't be able to get that right at the proper angle. That's why they're so long on these. Okay, so anyhow, that's your non-DIY tip. How do you like that? Non-DIY tip. So I got to finish all this, frame it up. I got the window going in here. Got my cripplers going in, framing it all up. Then we'll get it all back together. So this is going to get filled with foam anyways. I'll use a rigid foam on it. And we'll get it all right back to our Sundance. All right. So look what we got here. All rotted. And it goes back over there, somewhere over here. So we don't know where it stops. It may stop right here at this slide for all we know. But we got to figure that out, get that piece out. This whole bottom joist right here, you can see that's all rotted. And at least at that tail end, and then on this tail end as well. And then the other part we just discovered is that this floor is rotted up underneath the slide out, which means we got to take slide out, which would entail taking the sofa out. Well, no, actually we may be able to leave all that in there the way this is set up. We may be able to release it from here and pull it out. But we got to take all this trim. All this trim right here has got to come off. Let's see if I got my trusty pointer with me. All this trim right here, all that got to come out, because we got to get this piece off. In order to get this piece off, I got to take this piece off to get that piece off, and then I can probably come in here with a fork truck, lift it out, and get it removed so we can get that floor fixed. Woo-wee. Put some caulking on your coach. This is the platform for the Sundance, the bunk room where the bunk was. So inside, this sounds pretty good, but all this edge is all gone. That's where the wall sits. So it's easier, and all this is right here. This is where the edge is, see? That's all gone. So it's not worth trying to salvage a little piece in there. Just replace this whole thing. It just take longer to try to do a repair than it would be just to cut a new piece and put it in there. So this is all gone right here. You can see that. So that's what we're going to do on that. And then we've got some other little structural problems behind there that was rotted out. That I'll even show you that. I didn't like the way they did that. Didn't make sense. But get it built, get it out, get it sold. That's the RV manufacturer's motto. People really need to learn about structurality. Let's see what we got here. So check this out. So this is just pinned here. You can see that gap right there. That's because it's dropped. Because there's no support here. There's nothing here. There's no support. So the weight of the slide out caused that to fail. That's not strong enough. And this piece should have been brought out to here. And then this should have come out and had a little piece of steel or something underneath it, which is what we're going to do. So obviously all this is rotted. That's why we tore it apart. But they doubled it up and they figured, well, that'll give us some strength. But I mean, look at it peeling here. Perhaps if they had a piece of steel running back up on here, that would have caught all this. That would have prevented it from tilting. That's a possibility. But it still needs something up underneath this piece. You know, and it's the same way down in that other corner. So we got to make those repairs. He was just pointing something out. I'm standing over here looking like, hey, look at the gap. And then he says, you know, there's nothing in there. There's no fasteners in there at all. Not even a... Is that a crummy staple down there? Maybe. I think you're wrong. There's a crummy staple, I see. A little staple down there. Yeah, that ought to do the trick. So, get it built, get it out, get it sold. All right, back to more problems. So, we thought we had all that resolved, but we really didn't. So, this is why, I don't know who is the manufacturer for this, this coach, this Sundance, but whoever it is, they suck. So, this is your frame right here. Right there, see it? Right there. These are not even sitting on the frame. These are not. So now all that weight, when this thing is going down the road, bouncing, is not sitting on anything. You can't depend. So we're going to have another band here, and then the wall comes out. But that's not right. There should be a support underneath here. These should have come out a little further. Or the frame needed to be just a shade shorter to grab all that, and then build it. But so now we're going to be putting a support in there, and we got that going right now. We're going to put a piece of steel in there, and then just a piece of angle iron, and then we're going to screw it to this on the inside, up underneath here. See, the boards aren't touching. And we're going to put it on here, and then we'll screw our angle iron up this way into here to keep everything tight. I've got another bracket that I'm going to make. It's going to be a big plate, 3-inch plate that's going to come out, and it's going to have a gusset come on down, support angle down. And I'm going to probably have to weld it to the frame. So I'll get that one and that one. I'm hoping the other ones aren't as bad as this. So, but this is what kind of propagates all this stuff to fall apart because they don't do it right. So this starts that goes to this. Next thing you know, it basically, again, a dog chasing its tail. And it just doesn't make sense to me why they build and frame things like this. The only thing I can figure is they're stupid, which clearly they are, and they don't care. So get it built, get it out, get it sold. That terrible mentality is just costing people when they go to buy them. They go, wow, these are nice coaches, and you look inside and they'll spend more money to have your laminate on your cabinets, and they'll spend money to put a jazzy wallpaper on there, and then, you know, the wife comes in and looks at it and goes, this is beautiful. It's all stapled together. The whole thing is stapled together. That's what you saw this one here. It had one crummy staple in there holding that all together. So you got the weight of the slide sitting on here. So we straighten this up. This is ours. We put this in. So we're going to get that to seat proper. And then once we get that, like I said, I'll have that bracket come out. That bracket will carry all the weight right here. And I'm going to have to do the same thing down there. There's no sense in rebuilding a back wall and then in another couple of years this thing like bouncing down the road, and then the whole back wall starts loosening up again. Now it loosens up, get more water in there, right? It's just, I don't know if I'm saying I'm surprised, but it's a shame. This is pitiful. This is pitiful craftsmanship. You know, anybody could see if you don't have it sitting on here, that weight and that floor just bouncing. That doesn't even make logical sense. So anyhow, that's my rant for the day. Whoever built this Sundance, you suck. You got a steel plate in right here. So I got that welded in. It's got a little support down underneath it. You can barely see it right there. Kind of hard to get up underneath there and show you. But that's going to carry the weight that we need. That one over there, this one, the factory one on that side, is already there. So we're good with that. But they didn't have one here, that's why that failed. Put a piece of steel in here. Put a piece of steel in here, and it goes up underneath here. It's a 3-inch piece, so it goes all the way up underneath there. And then we secured it in there. We gotta secure the frame to that, and that'll take care of that problem. Then we can start putting the back wall on. Well, this was the floor. The mulch is the floor. You can see we got all this up inside here. That's part of the floor. This all fell right out. So the bottom side, now we're going to get the top side out. So you can see all the rot that was in there. I'm trying to do a video! It's working real hard. Time to, you can see it all wet right in here too. So we're gonna address all this obviously. Well, we pulled the slide. We got the box out. We had to bring it out because of the way this is constructed. It's a little different than the others. I don't know why. This had a thin skin on the bottom, and then it's got this piece on the top. There's nothing in the center. There's nothing at all. So all that's obviously all rotted, but we gotta dissect all that and see what's going on so we can get it rebuilt. I'd be surprised, and it may be all welded together or glued together from the siding. But so that's something that we gotta address, or build it right back here. It doesn't matter, but we'll get that fixed up. And then while we got this out, I'm looking at this. This is how you check your slide out. See, typically what they do, this is a fascia piece right here. So there's another one on the side, and that's usually where the gasket is when you close it, but that's what it's called, a fascia piece. So they typically, what they'll do is put some tape on here like this. And this had all this on here. This is just silicone. I don't know if you can hear that noise. That means the silicone's not adhered. See? It doesn't stick. And these are what RV shops do. They depend on just this silicone. They don't know how to use the product. They don't use any product. And it doesn't matter if it's silicone or not. It's not going to stick to this tape. This has to have basically a primer on top of it for it to adhere to it. So now there's our leak right there, right? So now we ignore this problem. We put that back. Well, he's going to be coming back saying, hey, you know what? I got a leak here now. So this is just some cheap rubber anyways. So more than likely I should peel all this off and make him a new roof. I already got this much done. So it's just a matter of taking a piece of metal and fancying it up. So we got it, and we'll get rid of this. What I don't like about these on here, or even then they have this same piece on the bottom. What I don't like about it is the rain hits on here. If this box is not perfectly level, I won't say it is perfectly level, or even tilted just a shade this way. If the wind is blowing, it'll push all that water back into the coach, and then it runs down, and it's going to sit in the floor, and that's what I don't like. So we'll end up when I do a new top, more than likely I'm going to do a new top. When I bring it over, then that's going to be all. It'll be one piece. There won't be a ledge for it to travel on, and that's the same problem down there. When they use this flat stock, same thing. The water will hit down there, and then it'll travel back into the coach, and it tends to rot out the floor, and it'll get into all these other areas over here. Let's see, I get this little ladder here to. It'll just start getting into here. Now they got this little cup here, which is a good idea, and this one here, it's got some damage up underneath this. Did that start it? I don't know. I also got these rollers. Look at these crummy rollers. They're probably wore out. So I got new rollers I'm going to put in there. There's no sense in doing this and not replacing the rollers because they're not expensive, and it'll obviously help this slide. The ones I have, they're bigger, so it'll have more support on them. So anyhow, that's how all that works. And there's obviously all your gaskets and everything else. All right, there's the ram assembly. That's what it does. It screws to the box. That's how it all operates. And that's a bed right there. All right, well, let us get to work and figure this thing out. This was the other concern I had. See how that all broke apart? That's the frame. Okay. That's all busted up. So we gotta get that all back together. So I gotta take this piece off, and we take that piece off and get this all stitched back in there, and then we can put everything back together. Well, we're starting to get some of this wall put back together. We put a new joist up inside there, and then this is a nailer. So we get that. We got the new piece on the back, and then that plate that I showed you that it fabricated. I got that. I don't know if I can show it here. But, yeah, you can barely see it. Right here. That's it there. So I welded all that in there. We're going to spray it with some undercoat. And this piece we already put in. So now that's a lot more strength. It's sitting right on that plate. So we got all that. Now we can start, once we get this kind of filled in a little bit, then it'll be a lot easier. We put the back wall on. All right, so now we got the cap off. And there she sits on her new fork truck. So everything looks dry down at the bottom here. So we're going to take all this out to double check all the way on the top up there to make sure all that's out. And then that it's all dry. It appears to be. But we had to take it off anyways because we got to fix this whole mess and we got to fix that whole mess. It was just easier. Where does it end? Where does it end? All right. So problem down there. That board right there is rotted. And that one goes on the other side of that wall right there. So it goes up underneath. You can see the one beside it. That looks pretty good. But this one, kind of, let's see if you can see. Let's see if I get this right. Mess up the camera. That's the one. It's all rotted. Right there. Put that light on there. Alright, so where is that board? Well, that's all the way over here. Up underneath, so here's a slide. It's all up underneath here. So this is rotted, but not all the way. So it's just like water got settled up right in this area. So we're going to take care of that. Let's see all this rot right here. I gotta get that piece out. That's a main piece. So there should be another one behind it. And if that other one behind it, if that's good, then we're in business. If not, then we got to tear more out to try to get a new piece, and we got to get it supported before we can bleach that one to it. So we're hoping this is the end of the rot, so we can get to rebuilding this thing. Whenever you take some of these wires apart, here's a good thing. You want to leave. This is the tip here. This white wire runs back up into this harness right here. All these wires. This blue wire came off of the heater. So we just snip a little bit and leave some on there. And now you'll see on there, you'll see a blue wire, you'll see a red wire, you'll see all this, and then you'll see a blue wire on there with a white piece of tape, because we had two blue wires, so we put a piece of tape on there, right? So you know who's who. And then when you look at the heater that's back there, all those wires will match up. So this way, you know who goes to what. You know, it's a good little trick. Well, we got the siding off now. And that's sopping wet. That's wet. That's all soaked. All soaked. There's a skylight right above there. That on the other side of this wall is the bathroom, the shower. So, but it's been leaking up there and just drooling down. That's where all the D-lamp came from. But we got to get that all dried out for sure. So there's a little bit of caulking is what you can get on these things to stave off all these damages. But this is the frame I was talking about earlier, underneath your slide out, and this is the one that's all jacked. Hey, there's nothing holding it. And then what they do is they put this in here, and that's supposed to carry the weight of the slide out, and they put this heavy-duty polystyrene foam in there. Okay, look at there, even all that's rotted in there. Yep, rotted. Oh man, and wet and rotted. So this is the interior right there. Right there, that's the inside. So we'll have to make up a frame for this. Okay, and they don't weld all these that good. There's no welds there. You can see like that joint right there, no welds. The one up there, no welds. Come over to this one. No welds. All they do is they just put these little snot welds on the inside, and welds only work in one direction. So we'll say you welded this, put a bead there, and you pull this way back against the weld, it will snap. And that's what's happening. So when they weld it on the inside, all that pressure is coming this way, which is aggravating that weld, and that's why that little snot weld, which isn't even very good weld, but it aggravates it, and that's what causes it to pop. We've done so many of these repairs on slide outs that have all these knuckles coming out, basically breaching, and they're not welded. I guess it's too much work for them. You know, even this is a structural piece too. I mean, all of this is structural, But everybody says, I love aluminum frames. Boy, they're so great and they're so strong. Yeah, if you weld them together, they may be. And if they weren't crap, this is like maybe 7 plies of Reynolds wrap. That's about it, Reynolds foil. Keep folding it over, you know. That's crazy. Anyhow, but that's the way they all are. So that's what keeps us busy. Back to our slide out box for our bedroom. This is just stapled on. That's it, just staples. Those staple marks right there. And then all I do is throw in a few scab pieces of insulation in there. Right there and right there. There's a little scab there. I'll show you on this side because I didn't even take that out. But this is all they put in. That's it. That's going to keep you nice and warm. I don't know who made the Sundance. I've been looking for that sticker. And but whoever made it, you should be ashamed of yourself. This thing is just riddled with problems. Riddled with problems. So then the floor is screwed down. You have to take this out to get the floor off. This is the floor that I got to replace right here because it's all rotted. So it's all screwed in this way through this. There's another screw right there, you know, which is this one right here. So I got to take this whole thing apart, redo the floor, and then after I get the floor done, obviously secure it all back together. I got to get this back on, but I got to put in some foam, rigid foam in there instead, make it a lot more energy efficient. Not only that, you know, but it also will add a lot of strength to it. So in the meantime, because I wrapped this over that and that over this and around the other side, I tear this all off and I got to put a metal roof on it. So a little bit of work to this little slide. So, and you can see, I mean, I showed you all the mess on the other side of the siding and everything. So we're working with all that. Oh boy, every time we turn around on this thing, there's something else. Well, we're trying to make some progress on our little slide out box here. So I decided to use this, and I checked all the welds, and really I tried to get it to break, and it seems pretty strong. They welded this one pretty good. They got welds down this way on both sides, so they got welds on all of the, I guess you want to call them verticals. So then the big test was, this is all hollow, and I got to get some bolts through there, and I want it to have some strength so when you tighten it up, it just doesn't squash that down. So I drove a 2x4 all the way through there. So I guess if it could handle all that slugging and it didn't come apart, then it must be pretty strong. So now I got to clad it over with some plywood, and then I'm going to fill it in with some foam, and then I'm going to put the plywood on the other side, and that should get us there. And then I can start assembling it. But I still got to take all this apart because, like I showed you before, there isn't any insulation in here really. So I'm going to put some insulation in there and get all that right. They kind of skimped on it, and I found out it was a keystone. That's what this thing is. It's a keystone. So Keystone, you suck. How's that? They got to pick up their game. But that's the thing, is they can get it built, get it out, get it sold. As far as they're concerned, they did their job. And then, you know, the customer has to pick up the rest when it starts falling apart as bad as this one does. So now we've got all the foam filled in, and we're going to clad it over. Here's the sheathing. We're going to clad it over, then we put the siding on. So it's coming along. Put this 2x4 up underneath here to give it some strength because that was coming apart. And then what we did is put these plates in. They're epoxied in there to build the corner. That's all epoxy. And we countersunk the screws so they wouldn't protrude out. So we did all that, did it all there. And then we got screws going down this way, and then we got screws going up this way. So we've got a lot going on here to pull all that together. So that's all done. I'm satisfied with the box we got up there in the corners. All those plates to hold that slide together. So now we go to the back. And the back, we are doing the same thing. We finished the wall, and now what we're doing is gluing it. And we got the same thing all filled in, got all our wires. We already checked everything to make sure everything worked. Of course, you want to do that first. And then we're gonna, you see we got the ISO board in there. That's the insulation we use. And we're gonna stick her on there. Over here on the passenger side, we have got this piece all fixed. We put new framing up inside here. Inside there, we had to cut here, and we got a piece of steel running up underneath here. There's that bolt right there. That's one of the cross members for the actual frame of the trailer. There's another one over there. So we put a piece of angle iron up inside here to carry this. Although all the framing we did, we connected it all back to the main coach, but I still want a little more strength on there. So here's our floor to the slide out, and we're going to pop that in here in just a minute. All right, so we had some issues from the other side of that storage on the outside that we had fixed, and this is obviously the inner side here. So we replaced this whole thing all the way down here. We were able to get that an 8-foot stretch in there. So now we're just going to fill that in with some sheathing. Good to go. And then we're going to see what we got over here and get this all fixed up as well. So now we filled in all the, they just had that crummy insulation in there. We put rigid foam. Not only did we put the rigid foam in there, we glued it all together. It's going to add a lot of strength to the box, and also the R value is increased dramatically. So we get that, and then we just glued this other side on over here. So we get this one glued on, and we're just prepping this piece over here. We're just cleaning it all up. Once we get it all cleaned up, then we're gonna spray it, put it back on here, and glue it. And then we got our metal roof already made up. That's sitting right here. So there's our metal. It'll just sit right on top here, and it'll come down on both sides, come down here. Then we just put our trim back on it. So now we get the face off because that's all rotted. I cut my finger. But we had to get all this rot out of here, and it's actually, some of it was still damp. That's still damp. It's not wet, but it's damp. So we gotta get that, make sure it's dry before we do anything. That's just peeling right up. So, ta-da. This is D-lam right here. So if you look at the grain, I'm gonna get the grain out here for you. Look at the grain on this. See the grain on here? It's going this way. This grain is going this way, right? So the next one underneath it is going the opposite way. They orientate them back and forth. They're plies. That's why it's called plywood, because they're plies, and they put them on there. And when the moisture gets in between those plies, then that delaminates that sheet. Or when the Phylon separates, the lamination, basically the glue, is come undone, so it's delaminated. So check out our wall. There's a wire that runs down through there though. But this whole thing it's loose. It's not supported anything, see? There's nothing holding this part of the wall. It's just a floater. That's all it is. So that one's already coming apart right there. See? Good job, Keystone. You ought to be proud of yourself. No one can put together a piece of crap like this as quickly as you can. You're the bestest. Give me a Keystone key tag. Let me show you what we did here. Alright, so obviously we took all the foam out, but the problem is, like, none of this is connected. You can see that big gap. That's the interior panel right here. So it's not secured to anything. Even though it's secured to the foam wasn't really secured to anything. So I put this strip up in here, put another one down here. Then we did put some pocket holes in here. And then we're going to put these in like this. And then we can go inside and we can tack that back in. But we're also going to be putting foam on it. But I want to get that top edge. I want to get that seated. So we're going to go in after, we'll flip this up and we'll fasten it that way. They should have just a little bit more strength in this thing, that's all. You know, these things take a beating when they go down the road. They're racking and twisting, and then the in and out of this thing, keeping, you know, on the controls of it all. I just want to make sure it's going to stay together. So we're going to be putting in an ISO board, which is right there. That's a different type of board. Got a better R value. That's a construction piece right there, or shall I say more of a commercial piece. So the stuff that they use in here, this is polystyrene foam. Polystyrene foam, you can see all that pockiness in there, I guess, or this is an open cell type foam. That's a closed cell. That's a much different foam. It's stronger, and also it'll have a better R value than this. But this is polystyrene. That's isocyanate right there. If you really want to know the technical terms of it all, might as well learn something. Get the little notebook out. And then maybe on another video you'll learn another trick. But the pocket screw is going to work pretty good if you've never used pocket screws. This one over here is a Craig. I've got a whole bunch of them. I got Porter cable. I got a whole bunch, Harbor Freight, whatever. But the way that is, see the screw head is all flat. So when you drill your hole right there, it's flat, and when it comes out, it's actually pulling the wood. You have to make sure you use the right screw. You can't use a regular wood screw, because when it goes down, regular wood screw, like something similar to this. See if I can focus that in. See how the head is kind of flared like a bugle. These are actually called bugle heads, much like the bugle, the instrument. And what happens is that will cause that to split. So you don't want to use those. You use these bucket screws. That's what'll get you. That'll pull it in. There's always, you know, when people design stuff and they make stuff, they test it and test it and test it, and they see where all the defects are, and then they fine tune it and hone it down. So that being said, you want to use the right screws, the right fasteners, and everything for the proper application for it. So all this is all glued in. We glued everything together, and then we got those screws there. They'll pierce through. Almost any screw would pierce through this cheap stuff, but we use some cell tappers that'll pull that in. And those type of screws right there that I'm using, those are different, and the head on them is really big. Those are called truss head screws. Those truss head screws, since the head is really big, it'll give us some pull in there to hold that nice and tight where we want it. So, you know, there's a rhyme and a reason for all this stuff we do, and this is what confuses a lot of guys that come to work here, and they just grab stuff and start working and go, oh, you can't use that because there's a reason for it. So anyhow, let me get to work, put this together so I can get the slide out and get it all finished up. We got this panel all cleaned up because it was all rotted. We've got the new pieces right there. We're going to take those. Once we get the foam in here, we're going to glue that to the foam, and then after we glue that to the foam, we'll glue this, we'll laminate this Phylon back on there. So we also got that sidewall going on right now. That's where all the noise you hear. So we got the foam in, and then we glue it all together. You can see it's all glued all around the perimeter. So we got that all done. Now we got to wait for it to just kind of cure out, and then we'll go back, shave it down so we can put the siding on it. And we're pretty good. So we put this stitch up here because the whole thing was so loose. We went back in and we pinned it. The inside panel, we pinned it back in. Same down here. So it's a lot more solid, that's for sure. It's going to be a lot better. And obviously, I think we already showed you, we did the same over here, put the same insulation there and on that other side over there. So it's coming together. We already got the roof panel made, and that'll sit on top. And then all the flashing detail I made comes down. You won't need this piece. I don't like the piece they put on here. Where's that small piece that we had up on here? Did you have it? The little flat piece? Should be right around here somewhere. Yeah. So this is what they had up here like this. And what happens is when that's on there like that, their roofing comes down, and then this terminates the roofing. And then what happens, though, we find a lot, is that the water will run down here, and then it can trickle back this way, back into the coach. So I don't like those pieces, so I take them off. So my piece on my roof panel will just come over and come down straight, so all that water comes right off. So I want it away from the coach. And the same with the front. The front will come down and turn down. So on the other, they had the fascia piece that was sitting on there, then they put tape on it. Now we're going to have to put that fascia piece back on, but it'll be sealed up underneath there. We're going to rid that tape. We won't have that problem. On the back over here, we got another turn up that comes like that. Yeah, like the vegetable, a turn up. It'll come up like this, and then, you know, so the water can't get back there for sure. And then obviously there's the interior fascia that will go on here. So that trim that comes in. So we'll have all that, but that'll be all sealed. We won't have to mess with it. On the bottom, we're going to do a rake on the bottom piece. So they use the same thing here on the bottom. And again, all that water will just trickle back in. So we're going to make one that's going to be wider here and more narrow. So that's what's called a rake, when it kind of goes down on an angle. When it goes on an angle, then any water comes down, it's going to be forced to go out that way. You'll see when we get it. All right, we got the box back in. Yahoo! All right, so we got that done. Then we're going to come over here and we'll take a look at what's going on with... Okay, in the corner of this slide out, there was a piece in there about, like literally about that big. It was just that corner. I'm not taking the whole floor out and starting to tear someone's wallet apart just for that little crumb. So what we did is I put a piece of steel plate in there and we epoxied it back together with another piece. That steel plate runs way out and way in, so it's oversized for for the little piece, and also there's a wire. So there's no need to do all that and tear it out. That's a lot of work to take out the floor. All right, so over here, this whole corner, let me get around you, I'll do a quick video. All right, so this whole corner right here, all the way out to about 14 inches, I guess, was rotted right in here. See how you see the hole? All right, so what we did, again, I'm not tearing the whole thing out because it just doesn't make sense just because we need this little bit right here. So what we did is we got another piece right there, and I put a rabbet joint in it, and we're going to epoxy all that back together. And once we epoxy it and we fasten it all back together, it isn't going anywhere. And then it'll also be screwed back up into the bottom of the wall, and also on this wall coming up, we'll screw it in there. It'll have more than enough strength, especially with the epoxy that we use. That's how they put all these together anyways. Like, that's a piece of Advantech. It's not your typical OSB. That stuff is crazy strong, but it's got a lot of epoxies and resins in it that actually help that thing perform super strong. So that's why we chose that, and it stays flat all the time. Even when it gets soaked, it stays flat. And I took a piece of that and threw it in my yard and left it there for about 3 months. It was kind of like a spring in my backyard, and I come back out and pulled it, and it was still strong. I mean, you could bang on it and everything. It wasn't rotted at all. So that's why I use it. And that was years ago when it first came out. Everybody's bragging about it, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to test it before I even put my name on it or even try to use it. And I use that a lot. It's a great panel. But it's an expensive panel too. It's like, I think it's like $80 a sheet now. That is crazy for a piece of plywood, basically. So anyhow, like you said, we rabbeted that joint out. We took a router and we made that, and then we did the same to that. So now when they come together, they'll be even. And again, we'll put the epoxy in there. That's going to be strong. We won't have any issues with it at all. Put the carpet back down. Everybody be happy. Save everybody a little bit of money. And this is the last of all of what we did. Then the other thing that we had to do, we had to loosen this up, and we had to reframe up underneath here and also in here. So we had to take all that out. So we got all this back together. We still got a little bit of stuff to do on the inside. I think on the other side of this wall is kind of like a fireplace. So we'll end up getting that and getting that reinstalled. But we had to pull all this stuff apart. There's just a lot of stuff you have to take apart to get at something. And, you know, sometimes you just don't know where it's ever going to end. So, but I'm happy with what we got. It's all set. That's a plus, thumbs up. And obviously, you see we got the panel on. We're going to have a scar up there. But that's going to be up underneath the siding. You still may, the awning, you still may see a little bit because it's, you know, right there. And then the same on the other side. I left that main piece over the awning because, again, I don't want to start doing more work than we have to and costing the customer more money. This was all de-lammed. There's the whole back wall right here. See, we got the back wall all back on. We got all that done. And then we got this here. So hopefully my camera work is good for you, or good enough. If not, I may reach out to Dramamine to be a sponsor if you're getting seasick. We're getting there. All right, so once we got that piece down inside here on this slide out. So what we did now is we took a thin piece of plywood and we glued it down to go over all of this. It's all over it. And then fasten that down, and now you got that lapped over. So there's a lot of strength on it. Carpet go over, bench go on it. We're done. You can't see it, can't feel it, nothing. It'll be good. Save everybody some money and aggravation. All right, so on this slide out, this is the forward slide, the bedroom slide. So we got some new gasket going in. So here's the problem. You put this gasket, like this is called a snap and seal. These things are pretty cool. But if you put one right here, any water that gets in there is going to get trapped in here. Then when it gets trapped in there, it's going to leak somewhere. So what we did is we made up, this is a piece of Z-Track we made up. And it's going to go in nice like that. I'm going to seal it in there. And then what will happen is, that stuff gets everywhere. Then we're going to put a piece of, the gasket we're going to put on is really going to be more of a sweep gasket, meaning that it's just going to keep some of the weather out. But if we put it all nice and tight, then any water that gets on this track won't be able to leak out. So we're going to put it on there. We're going to put these little pieces that'll hold the gasket on there. And then we'll have these open spots here, so any water that gets in can drool out in different areas. So that's the plan. Finally the roof! So they did kind of in areas, they did glue it. They didn't glue the whole thing. They kind of did it in areas. But check this out. Got some voltage here. So we got this, so we're going to rebuild those, reinforce them. And then I like to check, oh, I'm going to get all this out. This is wet. This is still wet. Isn't that crazy? See how it's kind of sticking like that? Like if you come over here, see how that fluffs away? This doesn't, that stays real tight. That's wet. So we're going to put that out in the sun. I'm kidding, we'll put new pieces in there. That would be funny though. This is wet too. Still got some moisture right here. So we're going to have to get a blower on here. And what we're going to be looking for, see where these wires go. If there's any coming up through the wall, we check for all that. Then we're going to check those trunk lines. So we got to pull all this insulation out. And then once we're satisfied with that, I know I got a rod of truss up here. So we got a little bit of problems there. This is a band. That's called a band. Here's your truss. That collects all the trusses together, much like when you do a deck. Put your joists in, and you get the other one called a band joist, because it bands everything together. I've heard some people call them ribbons. I don't know. I think band just sounds more masculine than ribbon. The band joist, not a ribbon joist. Hey, see the difference? You already want a band joist. So we'll fix that. This is, you can see this looks well. But then when we, like I said, when we come down here, you can see that's kind of compromising there. So we'll get all that straightened out. Check all the trunk lines. Get a blower on here. We'll fix this truss because I don't want to rip. Sometimes they should be gluing the ceiling panels to the other side here on the underside of the truss. So it's not all that easy to just tear these out because then you interrupt the ceiling. Now you got more collateral damage. So I tried to do my best to steer away from doing all that extra collateral damage. So this isn't anything crazy that I haven't seen before. So we're going to end up, I'll reinforce all this. I'll make some keys, what I call a key, that'll fit inside, and you'll see. It's all jazzy. But this is rotted pretty good. You know, we gotta get that out. We'll get all this out, and then we'll get some air on it. Alrighty, so that's like I said. Then we check all these trunk lines to make sure they are taped up. Look at there. That's a good snagging right there. So we want to make sure all these are tight. Make sure they're not compromised. They taped that up pretty good over there. So awesome. And then we'll check here. Make sure. See, sometimes if these wires, these are real light. But some of the heavier wires. Oh, I got this camera here. See if it did it here. See how these have little indentation. See if you get the camera over this way. There's a little indentation right here. So we'll put something right there, a little piece of aluminum, and then this way when it goes over, that'll be protected, and it won't start digging in. It's just from the, you know, rubbing back and forth. There's a coach kind of flexes, so we want to fix that so we don't wear a hole. You wear a hole in it, now you got cold air blowing up into the, basically, if you want to call this the attic area. So go around the other side. We had this routed truss right here, which I knew about, so I did cut a new one for this. We may be able to do the same thing and square that away in regards to reinforcing it. I don't know. Like I said, I try to look at things, how much it's going to take to actually tear it apart, redo it. This one I got one wire, so I'm more than likely I'm going to replace this one, because if I can get this out, which I really want to, then I can bring the roofing over and come down on the back side. Now I have something to screw to on the back, and more than likely, if I have an extra piece, I'm going to put a gutter on here, so any water comes down, go on instead of running all the way down the wall. I like that, but they're too cheap to do it at the factory. I can't do them with all of them. It depends on what the lights lay out. With the lights lay out, I don't want to start moving lights and all of that nonsense. So you see all this is got some pretty good insulation in it, meaning thickness-wise, you know. So there's another trunk line. So like I said, we're going to move all this stuff out of here, and we'll check it. They did put some glue on this edge, you can see. Hopefully the camera isn't moving too fast. You may need some of that. What is it, Dramaline? Let's see, sickness stuff. Because I'm looking at this, and I don't generally look through the viewfinder, which maybe I should. See what I'm doing. I'll go even slow, then I have to talk real slow. But you can see how some of it's stuck here. So that's pretty good. Most of them don't even do this much. But there's an older coach. I actually like older coaches and I do new ones. The new ones are worse, you know. I think the way they're built. At least this one has wood trusses. A lot of the newer ones, they have OSB trusses. I'm not a fan of the OSB. OSB is not a bad sheathing per se, but once it gets wet, it really just falls apart. At least this type of generic OSB does. You get something like a Vantech or even Zip Shield, it's not going to do that. But this stuff is just the cheap stuff. They're not going to spend any money on these. You know, get it built, get it out, get it sold. That's their goal. That's what the CEO wants. All right, so here's something I don't like. This is what I was looking for. Let's see if I can go around this way. That's what's good about our scaffold. It goes all the way around the whole coach on all four sides. So we can walk over here. So now you get all these wires bent over. That's called a ferrule right here. And what happens is when this coach moves and these wires move, it digs into the wire. So we look for, whoop, get back here, it's blurring out. So I like to see if it's just the insulation on there, which it looks like it just really made a mar in it. It didn't really go through anything. I'll check these ones. And then, is there a bushing down there? Let's see if I get a bushing. Zoom the camera back. All right, we got them. Walk around back. So, when I say that they don't want to put in one more red cent, this is what it is. They're just bushing. And these are an electrical code. Not for RVs, commercial or residential electrical codes. When you use a certain cable, like a BX cable, which is a flexible conduit, then, and this is it. Watch this fix. No more red, not one red cent will they add to this. And we're going to stop this problem right here. And then this, if I hold the camera and twist all this and hold my mouth right, all doing this left-handed. But you get the idea, that's supposed to get out of there. Ta-da! That's your fix. Easy peasy. So we're going to check them all. Now if it's like that one just has wood, there's no bushing on, there's no ferrule. It doesn't have a ferrule. So we don't need to put one on there. We just want to make sure there's ferrule because the inside of these things are sharp. It's like they cut them with a tubing cutter. So we want to protect it. So we'll check everything and then when we do all that, we'll give you another overview. All right, we have got the new truss in here. So we're going to put our fresh piece in here down that end because that was rotted. So we'll put that in there. That's just going to be basically to catch that little piece that goes in there. It's going to be to catch the gutter. That's all. Scooch up to the gutter too. Started with some of the insulation in here, but we have already gone around and put the little plates on there, taped it all in so it don't go anywhere. So we already did all that. And then we fixed a couple of these joints up here, got them nice and tight. There's another plate right there. So we got all that. Here's our fancy dancy ductwork. That's going to go in here. We're going to put this in here. We're going to have a solar fan. We're going to have it over here. That'll be the intake. So, because you'll have your lens up in here and you'll have a lens on top. And that usually creates a condensation issue, which is what contributed to some of this, besides the actual lens itself. But then when that fan kicks on, when the sun comes up, it'll pull all that condensation out and it'll keep running. It just stays running until the sun goes down. So it only works in the sun from what I understand. So if it's not sunny, then you may have to move the coach to a sunny area. That's my guess. All right, so we got all that done. You can see I put new trusses in here. And that's a keyway I made. And that keyway, you can see all the glue in there as well. And then it's all screwed, got pocket screws, boom, boom, boom. That holds that in, then they're screwed this way, screwed that way. So there's no way like any of that could break apart because if you tried to lift it up, you'd actually be forcing this piece backwards, and it's not going to happen. It's not going to, especially the way it's built. But even with the with all the glue we got and the screws, it's not going anywhere. On this one, did the same thing, and then we just threw a gusset on here on this side, and we glued it all. And then I'm probably going to throw a little gusset on here just for the heck of it. It's just kind of the way I do things. And then other than that, we're about ready to rock and roll. And we got all those wires protected on that ductwork. That's all protected over there. We had a couple of wires I showed you over there that I had already taken care of. So we're real close to getting the roof deck on. I got one more truss right here that I have to. And you can see we got the fans going to dry that out. That's why the fans are up here. And then we got one more truss we're going to put right in here. I got a little bit of rot in the ceiling, but I'm not going to worry about it because I have to tear the ceiling out. It's in a closet. You're never going to see it. It's all buried up inside this cap shell closet and everything. Here's another one of those bushings. So this will go in here like a so. It sits in there. And then we can start putting all our decking on after we get some. Most of the insulation is fine. It was just over here by the shower. So we're going to obviously put fresh insulation, and then once we tack all this up, any of this loose stuff, I got another foam I may put in there and glue it all back together, so I don't have to start tearing out a ceiling. The inside, you know, you're going to be asking for a lot more work on here, and we're trying to curb the wallet for this guy because we had a lot more work in here than even he expected. So push comes to shove, if you don't like it, this is just a shower. He can, you know, either put a new piece up on there. If it was my shower, I think a smart thing to do is probably put an aluminum pan up there or something more watertight than just the Luan. You know, they really should be putting like they have a panel, it's called FRP, which stands for Fire Resistant Panel. And you can get that anywhere at Home Depot or wherever. And it's got a pebbly look to it, but it's not going to hold the moisture. So that's what you want. You want to get rid of that because this is the shower. And I believe it's the shower. Yes, that's why it's got that lens there. And then ideally, I mean, it really should have an exhaust fan when you put the shower on. All that steam got to go somewhere. So you really want to get something on there. Maybe you'll have to look into that too. I got to go inside and check it out. We're getting the decking on. And you can see we got all this glue on here, gluing everything down, stapling it all together. You want to use staples on these. Some people say, hey, you should screw it down. Once you glue it and staple it, those staples, these staples that we use are designed for sheathing. You end up ripping the sheathing before you tear out the staples. But also, if you start sailing a whole bunch of screws through that thin piece on the top of that truss, you're going to split it. So you don't want to do that. Alright, we get the front shell on. And we get half the roof rolled. The passenger side's rolled out. We'll go up there. All right, so this is the driver's side that we're got all glued right now, and then obviously roll that out. But this other side, passenger side's already done. You can see we got our protective strips on this. And if you've watched a couple others, you go, oh, he didn't put them on the others. Why did you put them on here? Some of these trusses are squirrely, and the wood that they do use to, you know, make the trusses, it's just not even. And sometimes you can't get it to look good. So we put the strips on there to help it just look better and more even, right? So we even got a protective strip in the back, and then on the edge here we just have some metal that we turn down, and that's going to help protect the siding, or the roofing rather, from the siding there. And all they do at the factory is put tape on there. That's all they run on there. So we get that all ready. Once this starts flashing off, we'll roll it, and then we can start cutting our curbs in and getting all this thing completed. So there's a lot of work on this for sure. So hopefully this video won't be all so long. Like, so I think that fun mover was like an hour and a half or something crazy. That was a long video, but there was a whole bunch of work we had to do on that one. All right, we got the roof down. It is there. Now what we do is we're rolling it with this big heavy roller. I'll pack her down. We get that down there. We just throw some tape on there to keep it clean. Every now and again we change the tape out. You can see that blue on there. Now we get yellow, whatever. Maybe we'll put red on there, make a whole bunch of different colors. We go back and forth a couple times on that. Pack her all down, and she's good to go. And we can start cutting our vent holes and skylight, whatever else we got. We cut all that out, tighten the roofing up. And then once we tighten the roofing up, staple it. We staple it back to the coach, and put our gutter on. So still got a little bit to do. So we do the roller on here because you want to make sure this thing gets bonded really well. They don't do that at the factory. That's why you'll see, that's one of the reasons why you'll see it come up. Also, you can't really roll rubber. Well, rolling rubber with one of those heavy rollers is almost like pushing something across carpet, how it kind of wads up in front of the wheels. That's what'll happen. It just won't seat right. But even on their other roofs, they just roll it out and that's the end of it. Meaning like they roll the roofing out, but they don't actually put a roller to it. And it really should be rolled. That's what'll help it get a good bond. All right, we're done. We're done. We're done. We are just giving you a quick video of everything we did on the slide. Then we'll move the scaffold over and I'll show you the roof. But if you've watched other videos, then you know what the roof probably already looks like. So we went around and caulked every single thing around the lights, obviously. So we had to get all of the siding off. We got a little bit of collateral damage, and then that's an epoxy. We put a dye in it. It's a UV protected dye, but I would still like the customer to take a look at this and make sure, you know, it doesn't. We inspect it anyways, but if it looks like it's starting to, like what they call halo out or fail, then we can get something else in there. But that pigment should be UV protected. If you don't, when you put an epoxy in, if it's not protected, then the UV light will just kind of deteriorate it, kind of shrink it up, and then it doesn't work anymore. So I also want to thank the customer for bringing this coach into us. I mean, this was a big project for sure. So, but everything is done all around. We caulked everything, even like the little screws around the light, those come out. We went around there. We went around, obviously, this here, but every little tiny thing that you would not think that you need to protect. Every single screw, everything is sealed. That's the way you have to do them. It's tedious, absolutely tedious. So what we did on here, there's a rake that I made up. So now when the rain comes down, it's going to hit here, and if this box isn't exactly level, it doesn't matter. It's going to still come on down this way. That's the whole idea to it, to kind of keep the water away from obviously getting inside the coach. So these are just little trips. You can buy them. All they are little pieces of plastic that we cut and put on there. The purpose is, so in this one on the bottom here, this will trip this first, this gasket. And then as this goes in, it'll trip that gasket. And then the other ones are on top of the roof. So when that goes in, so everything folds in the way it should, so the gaskets don't get kind of messed up. So again, we get the same piece on there, the same rake. You got the same little trips up there, got one down here. So we want all around the whole thing, so everything is sealed. That's why I say it is tedious for sure. But these are where we find the problems, because things aren't sealed, and these things, absolutely everything, if you think about it, needs to be sealed. So obviously around the windows, everything. So let us get the scaffold pulled in, and then I'll show you the roof on this Sundance. We're done with our Sundance. It's ready to go. All right, so we've got our marker on here. We put those on there, so when it comes back for inspections, we know how old the roof is. What we're looking for is premature aging or anything like that. That's what we do. So I'm trying to get over here, we had to pull and move the scaffolding and everything. So just want to try to get these couple of pieces for you. So what this is, I'll just do this real quick. The roof system itself is a 60 mil commercial grade TPO. It's thermoplastic. Everything welds together, okay? It's a structured membrane. So this structured membrane, you can probably see them little squares in there. That's what gives it its strength. There's a mesh built inside there, and that's what gives it its strength against like hail, tree branches, and things like that. So the way they do roofing is on these membranes, and they're all about the same anyways, but they start off on a commercial level, they start off at 45, which is a 15-year warranty, and then they go to 20, a 20-year, which is 60 mil, and that's what this is. So this is upgraded really from the lowest of the commercial, right? So this here, like all warranties for roof membranes, they warranty the material, and say the warranty will read that it will not fail, it will not do premature failure, put it that way. That's how they word it, premature, unusual failure. it should get 20 years out of it. So obviously it's going to degrade, you know, slowly or within 20 years. They don't know who's building all these components. They don't warranty that. So now you go into the RV shop and you're going to buy a new RV and they go, oh yeah, it's got a 12-year roof system. And people think, hey, I got a 12-year roof or a 10-year roof, whatever they're telling you. It's not going to leak. That's not the case. They're saying the membrane is 10 years, 12 years, whatever it may be, right? They don't know who's doing all this work, so they're not going to warranty that. That's why they give you that big box with all the warranty information. And then that's why they tell you to come up here and keep slobbering more on, and keep getting that caulking on there, which is the cash cow for Dicor. That stuff, if it worked, why do you have to keep putting it on every 3 or 4 months? Could you imagine getting a set of tires put on your car from a reputable place? You shake the hand of the salesman, he thanks you for the business, and he goes, oh, by the way, you're going to have to fill them up with air within 3 to 4 months, you know, every 3 to 4 months. You'd be like, that's crazy, right? They're going to go dead flat on you. The problem is if you were to take interior caulking and use it on an exterior application like interior caulking that you'd use inside, maybe around moldings and so forth, if you take that same caulking and you use it outside around your windows or something like that, that caulking is not going to perform because it doesn't have properties built into it to reflect UV light or to thwart UV light, right, or combat it, however you want to look at it. And that essentially is what's happening to the Dicor. They know it fails, but it's their cash cow at $15 a tube or whatever it is now. I don't know the exact number because I don't buy it. But I've had some customers tell me obviously it gets expensive. Can you imagine how many tubes they sell because they, of all these coaches, keep slobbering more on? I mean, that's just crazy. But they exploit people's ignorance to roof systems. They know you don't know anything about roofs, so let me educate you. I'm going to educate you and say, what you have to do is take this tube and you have to slobber it all over there. That isn't how you do a roof. That isn't even how you do a commercial roof. Imagine like all of these big companies, these big bakeries and, you know, commercial plants, car manufacturers, food processing plants. Could you imagine how, you know, these things get to be acres big. These buildings are enormous. Could you imagine using that Dicor on there and you wouldn't even have to use a curb? All you'd have to do is just slap it down, screw it down, and slobber it with self-leveling and go, hey, there you go. On a commercial level, these things here, the curves for these boots, things like that, those are called detail. And detail will account for about 65 to 70% of the roof cost. So they could save a lot of money just by not putting on the curbs. Because all of these, you know, they have to be, again, there's detail to it. You have to weld it all in. You have to make sure everything's all watertight and so forth. You don't just screw it down and slobber some caulking on it. That's the wrong way to do a roof. So all that said, this is the same exact roof material that you would find on a hotel, an office building, a library. Same exact material from the same exact warehouse. I buy it from a commercial warehouse. So you can't buy all these curbs and everything. I custom build all these. I build them all, and you cannot, you can't buy them even, you know, these curbs. They don't make them like this. So what I did is I redesigned them so they form and function properly for an RV. That's basically all I did. I make it sound easy, but there's a little bit of brain work to it to make sure it all comes together. That's for sure. So all that said, like I said, this is literally a commercial roof. So we got these stands in the back here, and what that does, it just gives the air conditioner some balance. So every one of these curves that I designed, and they all have what's called flashing and counter flashing. And what flashing is this part down here. That's your flashing. Up underneath here, I built in that little tab, a little tiny tab. That's called counter flashing. So on the, who is that guy there? RV Armor. He has got a video out. And one of his videos, he's on the roof, and the guy's asking him what he does about air conditioners. And he says within the 1 minute mark, and you can go, you know, yourself and watch it if you'd like, unless they took it down. But I do have a video on our channel right here. I'm not good at all these links and all this stuff, so, but it is on there. It's called Even RV Armor Thinks We're Better, or something along that lines. And you'll see why I don't do the spray-on system. It doesn't work. As a commercial contractor, I used to have all these spray equipment. I used to have roll formers for metal. We did a lot of fabrication, structural work. I was a general contractor. So all that being said, if I thought it worked for an RV, I'd just go buy the machine and I'd spray it and go, hey, there you go. But there's obviously underlying issues, as you can see, like with this coach and other ones on our channel, that need to be addressed before you start just slapping a roof on it. You slap a good roof on it, you go, wow, the roof come out great. Well, everything underneath is junk. It's rotted or it's not put together well, then the roof isn't going to perform properly. So you just wasted all your money. So the spray-ons, those are just a coating. And even though you put it on, after a while, you have to go back and put yet another coating on there. So I'm not a fan of those. Like I said, if that was the case, I'd just buy the machine. So I use what works best for the application. A case in point like that slide out that's up there in the front for the bed. That one over there, I put a metal roof on it. That's metal. I don't use the TPO because that slide's got to go in and out. And when it goes in and out, I don't want any, if there's a twig or a little branch up there, I don't want it to get caught in between that rubber gasket, the seal gasket, and pinch it into the roof membrane and cause a leak. So I use metal for that. And I fabricate it all together. So we got all these boots right here. Those are all loaded. So even if those caps come off, if those caps come off, the water is just going to go down into the holding tanks. So, and they're just spring loaded inside there when you pull them off. But all of these are all heat welded. Everything's all heat welded. Now this is new. The problem we had was that skylight, we had all that rot on there, and that rot had come from the skylight in itself, but also that's a shower. There's no ventilation in that shower, so all the steam was just sitting up on the ceiling and started rotting it out. So I put this little fan, and that's all it is, just a fan. It doesn't open. That's exactly the way you see it. You flip a switch, it turns on, and it's that simple. So we put that on there. So now, obviously, when you go into the shower, we hooked it up to the light. So when you turn the light on to get in the shower, that fan's already coming on. Okay, that's how we did it. This over here, what that is, see if I zoom up a little bit. This is a solar fan that I designed. So, and that over there is an intake. If that pops off, take this cap right here, one of these, and put it on there, or block it up with tape or something, because if that pops off, it will leak into the coach. It's just an open, basically there's a plenum or a little ductwork, and that's an intake. This is your exhaust fan. So it happens, especially when it's cool out, you'll have some frost or dew up on the lens, and it's not only on the top, it's on the inside of that lens as well. So now the sun comes up and the sun warms that up and evaporates it off. But what's up underneath on the inside of that lens will drool down, and then that's how you get that condensation. Basically, you call that dry rot. Much like when you go out, on a cool day, you got some frost on your windshield, and you'll have the dew is also on the inside of the windshield. You put your defrosters on to get rid of all that. Same principle. So now when the sun comes up to heat that up, as the sun comes up and evaporates that solar fan's going to kick on. So now the inside, that dew that's coming down, that's the intake, and the air comes up in between that lens and the inner lens. There's two lenses, so it'll go in between there and it'll get exhausted out. So you have that constant air going in there, get that moisture out of there. That's the whole purpose of it. So I decided to do it with a solar fan because the solar fan, you don't have to control it. No one's going to keep running back and forth to their coach to try to flip a switch or something. They're not going to do it. And even if you hooked it up to a battery, is a battery charged up? So that's just perfect. That works awesome. So that's what all that's about. But like I said, if that cap does pop off, that one over there, that's the intake. If it pops off, it will leak in there because that's just an open tube that comes in there. So block it with this. We'll put tape on it. Okay. So all these are all heat welded. Everything is all heat welded. You don't have to caulk all this nonsense. That's crazy. So everything we do, we have 2 strikes of caulking that we run along the whole thing here. There's 2 strikes. So when we put these on, we seal the back with an adhesive caulk. That goes right on, and then it'll burp up. We strike it down, and then we put one more layer on it. That cures, and then we put another layer. So I don't know if you want to call it 3, but every one of these screws, I'm going to see if I can pop this loose a little bit to show you. But every one of these screws, here we go. Every one of these screws are all sealed. Every one of them are all sealed. We seal every single one. That's what we do. You need to have them sealed. And if you look at this, see how it's got that little slot in there? There's a track right here, and it snaps into that track. So it's inside the track and outside the track, and that keeps the water out. So on the other ones, the cheap stuff that they use, it just sits in the track. And then what it does, it rolls down on the underside here, and it gets in the track that way, and then the water's traveling inside that track. And I don't want any water in there if I can prevent it. I want to keep as much out as I can. So all that said, I have to buy this product. I buy this by 2 miles. They have to buy 2 miles of this stuff. So I don't sell anything. We don't sell anything here. We're not a sales shop at all. We're just a service center, so we don't sell anything at all. We don't sell the curves. We don't sell anything. The other thing is we don't quote on social media either. So, you know, if you are interested in having your roof done, then, you know, just give us a call. We'll see what you got, and, you know, we'll try to help you out with some pricing on it. And again, we don't know everything that's going on with your coach. So it may be X dollars to get basically put a roof on it, and we're hoping that's all it needs. But then we may get into this thing like this. We didn't know there was all this work into this. And we may have to call you back and go, hey, we noticed this, we noticed that, and get approval to move forward. So we also put a new skylight lens on there for them. And then you can see the antenna right there, the radio antenna. That's in a boot. Everything's in a boot. That's the way it should be. This is a real commercial roof. So here's another plumbing. Again, like I said, if this were to pop off, it'll just go down into the holding tanks. So the other thing that I did is they had this corner mold right here. This is what this is right here that comes up. That's corner mold. They had it come up and they had it folded over here like this. Then they had this is a termination bar, is what they usually put on the end, and that's what holds the sheet. Basically, it terminates the roofing, right? And then what they'll do is that you'll have this corner right in here where you have that metal piece coming this way and this other corner mold coming this way. And then if it breaches, then you get water that just pours down into the wall. In this case, that's what happened. So we cut it back, and then I put a gutter on the end. So I've got a gutter on there because I want the water, I don't even want it running down. I can't do that to all the coaches. I like to if I you know, have the opportunity, but sometimes the lights and everything get in the way, especially on some travel trailers and things. But if I can, I'll put a gutter on there, so this way it's getting off away from the coach, as all that water isn't running down the coach. You want to keep that away from the coach. So what this was, if you're going, hey, what was this thing? This is just what I showed you right here, except I got it in black, and you can see how it fits. This is the insert trim. See how it fits right there, that little groove, and it fits inside. That's how it works. This is the one I was telling you about, where it just kind of seats down. So now, as the gutter is sitting this way, the water gets into this part of the track, the lower end of it, and then it travels, because there's nothing to keep it out. But with this one, it goes inside and outside and kind of locks that water out. So that's why we like it. But like I said, we don't sell anything here at all. We want to thank the customer for bringing this to our shop. We know there was a lot of work in doing so. But getting back to the air conditioner on these, on the counter flash, so that's what I showed you, the counter flash. They're all built the same way. They all have that counter flash, and the purpose of it, I'll even show you like over here on this one. The purpose of it is when you get caught in a rainstorm, or even if it's just pushing rain and things parked, all that water is just pushing and pushing and pushing, and it causes an erosion effect which starts wearing things down. So now the water will come up here, and when it comes up here, it's going to get redirected around. It can't jump up on top. I mean, of course, you can have water coming down, and that's why we like to see the covers on there. But that water is going to get all shut off, but you won't have anything kind of streaking across. That's the way you do a commercial roof. So on the air conditioner, though, you can see this front piece here. That's a piece of metal that we put underneath there, and it goes under the cover, but it goes over the counter flash we have for that curb. And the purpose of that, up underneath here, is a foam gasket. So if I don't have that there, the water would trickle down, and the wind would be blowing all that water up underneath the frame there. It would be blowing it all back into that foam gasket. I don't want that to happen. I want that water out of the way. So now when the water comes down, it's below the counter flash of the curb, and it'll get washed out. So you protect the gasket. So on the, getting back to that RV armor, he was saying on air conditioners, within that 1 minute mark, that if this was a commercial building, he said then the air conditioner would be up on a curb and it would have flashing and counter flashing. That's what he says in that 1 minute mark. Then he proceeds to say that you still may experience leaks with his new system. You may experience more leaks around your air conditioner. What you need to do is go in and tighten those bolts up. Okay, that's bad advice, because if you've ever done any like valve cover work on your engine, you just can't go in and start just tightening things down. That isn't the way those gaskets are designed to do. So they have to be torqued down, and it has to be even pressure, okay? But if you've already got leaks on there, then what's to prevent it from happening again? So you're going to go in there every single time? That's if you catch it. So typically what happens is you won't catch it, and there'll be very small leaks, real small. but it'll be enough to get that all rotted out, and then it starts rotting out the decking. And then when the decking gets rotted out and it can't hold any more water, then it's going to go to the framing. And when the framing can't hold any more water, it's going to soak down into the insulation. Now when everything can't hold any more water, you're going to see these things belly down, and that's when you get some damage. So this is the proper way to do it. You know, and again, that's why I don't like that system. It's not a good system to use. Not if you want to keep your coach. So if you got a travel trailer or something you're just going to keep for a year or two and you plan on getting rid of it, well, you may not want to put a roof on it from us. I don't know. But anyhow, we appreciate y'all watching. And like I said, we don't quote on social media. And there's also, these aren't DIY videos. They're not intended for that. Most of the videos we put together, shall I say all the videos we put together, is to show Mr. or Mrs. Customer what we did to their coach, what we found, how we fixed it. You know, that's basically it. But we don't show all those steps in there. These videos would be incredibly long. You know, I might as well just have a show on A&E or somebody to do them, you know. But they would be very long. We've got one video up there. It's called Fun Mover, and that one is an hour and a half. And that was still not everything we did. So you could imagine every single notation and documentation, if you will, or video clip, it would get to be really long. So anyhow, we appreciate y'all watching it. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. What that does, from what I understand, and I'm not a guru at any of this YouTube stuff, but from what they say, if you give it a thumbs up, you probably already know more of this than I do. But then if somebody else is searching for something, that video will kind of show up for them, you know. So, and if you like the content, obviously you can subscribe, and we post them as soon as they're done. Sometimes they're every week, sometimes it takes a couple of weeks, it depends, and how far behind we get on doing a lot of stuff. So we are a small shop, but we do the best we can to try to get, you know, the videos up there for the customers to review. So anyhow, you probably noticed we got a land sitting over there we're going to get done. That needs a roof. And then over here we have another big, huge Class C that we had to redo that, and you'll see the video on that shortly. We had to redeck it. That was a lot of work. That, again, was just supposed to be a roof and a redeck. And we had to reframe the whole entire roof. So it had all sunken down. The air conditioner that's back over on this side had fallen in. The roof in itself was all wavy. So we had to reframe it and get all the strength back because it was ready to just cave in. All right, well, we appreciate you watching. We'll see you on the next one. So in our care package, we have caulking, we got primer, we have got 2 patches. Those are heat patches. We got a patch peel and stick patch. We got a checker tool. We've got a magnet. And the rest of this is just pens, keychains, brush, nozzle. Okay, so if we have a hole in the roof, it will simulate a hole. You can do hole simulations. We say we got a hole there. Here's your tree branch come through and you're like, oh man, I got a hole in my roof, it's leaking. So what you want to do? And it's raining out. Right now it's raining. You're like, crap, I gotta stop that leak. You want to get in there, and if you can't get that nozzle in there, don't worry about it. Make it a little bigger. What you try and do, you need to get up underneath the roofing, like this. This is what we need to do, get up underneath the roofing. Then you're going to take and you're going to put this up inside there, and you're going to squeeze, 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 squeeze. Hopefully this thing is plugged up. There it goes. Just squeeze, squeeze. You want to try and get up underneath this part too. Squeeze up underneath there. Get some more underneath there. Well, we are getting this thing all boogered up. Then what we're going to do, you're going to push it together. See how it oozes out? That's sealed. You're done. This is a moisture cured product. So what? It's a hot mess. Looks terrible. Who cares? Keep the water out. So now, the next day, we're going to go up there, and that's going to be cured looking like that. So we're going to take a knife, and you just shave it down. Just shave it down with a knife. I'm just going to obviously wipe this off. Now you say, hey, I want something a little better than that. So what we're going to do is get some cleaner. This is a terrible rag. You get another one. You got one on you? Oh, get a rag, get a rag, get a rag, get a rag, get a rag. What are you going to talk about, man? No, just leave it alone. Oh, leave it alone right now. We're recording now? Are we on?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Alright, so now we cleaned it off with a knife. I just washed that off because it's still wet. Take that off. So now we got a patch. This is a peel and stick patch. We're going to take that, we're going to center it over there. Just take a pen and go around like this. I like to kind of put a dash like that so I know who's where, what, and where, and how. So now there's what I got. So in the package we got primer. We also have a brush. You're going to take that, you're going to go all inside the square. You're also going to go outside this square about 3/8 of an inch. Outside about 3/8 of an inch or so. Once you get that, there's a film on the back. You peel the film, now you know which side you are, see, because there's your marks. And you peel that film back. Get the fat fingers in there to get the film off of this thing. This is just a regular roof tape. That's all it is. We put them in all the care packages. Get that daggone thing off of there. Probably use some fingernails. Probably help. Come on. There it is. Okay. There it is. Now you got the film. We'll take that film. So now we're going to line it back up with this. We already got the primer under there. You just peel the film back, and as you do, you just rub it down like this. Sometimes that film will get a little stuck in there. This is just a butyl. You just kind of try to keep it as even as you can and flat as you can. Boom, you're done. There it is. So now, out here, this is where your primer is. You put the primer on there. You got primer there, and now you're going to put primer here. You want to prime all this area with your brush. Prime all that. Then you're going to come back. Once you get it all primed, then you're going to put a little bit of caulking on it, just like this. That's simple. It doesn't all sit in there. You can always take your finger and go around it if you want. We're trying to obviously stop a leak and make one of. There's going to be a little more permanent of a patch than just that plug that we did when it was raining. So now that we get that all done, the whole purpose of it is this part here. This part underneath here, that's a butyl. When the sun hits that, if you didn't have the caulking on there, it will cause it to release and curl up just like I'm doing here. And it'll start coming loose. That's why you need the primer. That's why when you prime it, you're going to prime on top of this because nothing will stick to it. Nothing, the caulking will not stick to this patch and it won't stick to the roof unless you use the primer. That's how you do a patch. Ta-da! All done.